Welcome back to the channel, everyone. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe to Ajay for more stories like this one. Today, we're diving into a tale of innovation, fear, and colossal failure. It's the story of a company that once defined an entire industry, a name that was synonymous with memories themselves, Kodak. Kodak didn't just miss the digital revolution, they invented the very technology that would eventually lead to their demise. So, how did the undisputed king of photography end up filing for bankruptcy? This is the tragic story of how Kodak's fear of its own creation led to the collapse of a global empire. In the 1970s, Kodak was an absolute titan. Holding a staggering 90% market share for photographic film in the United States, they were more than just a company, they were a cultural institution. The phrase "a Kodak moment" was ingrained in the global lexicon, representing a precious memory captured forever. Their business model was a masterclass in profitability, often compared to the razor and blades model. They sold cameras at affordable prices, sometimes even at a loss, because the real money was in the recurring sales of film, printing paper, and developing chemicals. This cycle created a continuous stream of revenue that seemed unstoppable. For decades, this strategy worked flawlessly. Kodak was one of the most valuable and recognized brands in the world, a blue-chip stock that symbolized stability and enduring success. It seemed impossible to imagine a world without Kodak at the top of the photography food chain. But deep within their own research labs, a revolution was quietly brewing. In 1975, a young Kodak engineer named Steve Sasson created something that would change the world, even if his own bosses didn't see it. He invented the world's first digital camera. This prototype was a clunky, toaster-sized device that weighed about 8 pounds. It captured a black and white image with a resolution of 0.01 megapixels and took 23 seconds to record it onto a cassette tape. To view the image, you had to hook the contraption up to a television set. It was crude, slow, and far from consumer-ready. When Sasson presented his invention to Kodak's executives, their reaction was lukewarm at best. They were intrigued by the technology, but their primary question was, "That's cute, but don't tell anyone about it." They couldn't see how this filmless photography could ever fit into their incredibly lucrative business model. The executives were trapped by what is now called a success trap. Their existing business, built on film, was so immensely profitable that they viewed any new technology through a single lens. How does it help us sell more film? Digital photography, which required no film and no developing, was not just an outside threat, it was an internal cannibal. Instead of embracing this groundbreaking invention and leading the charge into the digital age, Kodak's leadership made a fateful decision. They chose to bury it. They feared that promoting digital cameras would cannibalize their film sales, the golden goose that had made them an empire. Their focus remained entirely on protecting their existing cash cow. They patented Sasson's technology but decided to sit on it, believing they had decades before it would become a viable threat. This was their first, and perhaps most critical, mistake. They saw the future, held it in their hands, and chose to put it back in the box, hoping it would stay there. Throughout the 1980s and into the early 90s, Kodak continued to dominate the film market, but the digital seeds they had ignored were starting to sprout elsewhere. Competitors like Sony and Fuji began experimenting with their own digital cameras. Kodak wasn't entirely asleep at the wheel, they did invest billions in digital research. However, their approach was fundamentally flawed. They treated digital photography as an accessory to their film business, not as its successor. They envisioned a hybrid world where digital cameras would be used to take pictures, which would then be printed on Kodak paper using Kodak printers. Their mindset was still anchored in the physical world of prints and chemicals. One of their products from this era, the photo CD, perfectly illustrates this conflicted strategy. It allowed users to have their film negatives scanned and stored on a compact disc. It was a bridge between analog and digital, but it was a bridge to nowhere. Consumers weren't interested in a complicated, expensive process, they wanted the immediacy and convenience that digital promised. While Kodak was trying to force digital into its old business model, other companies were building a new one from the ground up. They understood that the value was shifting from prints to pixels, from physical albums to digital sharing. The internet was emerging, and with it, a new way for people to connect and share their lives instantly. The real turning point came in the late 1990s and early 2000s. Digital cameras were rapidly improving in quality while simultaneously dropping in price. Suddenly, they were no longer expensive toys for tech enthusiasts, they were becoming mainstream consumer products. Fuji, Kodak's longtime rival, adopted a much smarter strategy. They also saw the threat of digital, but instead of resisting it, they diversified. They leveraged their expertise in chemical processing to move into cosmetics and medical imaging, while also aggressively competing in the digital camera market. Kodak, in contrast, doubled down on film. The company's management was filled with executives who had built their careers in the chemical and manufacturing side of the business. They were brilliant at making film but lacked the vision and agility to navigate the fast-paced world of digital electronics and software. This corporate culture was resistant to change and deeply arrogant, convinced that the Kodak brand alone was enough to sustain them. As the new millennium dawned, the decline accelerated with terrifying speed. The rise of camera phones delivered the final, decisive blow. Suddenly, everyone had a camera in their pocket, and sharing photos online via platforms like Facebook and Flickr became the new norm. The Kodak moment was being replaced by the Instagram post. Printing photos, the cornerstone of Kodak's late-stage strategy, became a niche activity rather than a necessity. The very act of taking a picture was decoupled from the act of printing it. Kodak's entire profit engine sputtered and died. The razor and blades model was broken because nobody needed the blades anymore. In a desperate attempt to catch up, Kodak finally went all in on digital cameras, but it was too little, too late. The market was already saturated with offerings from Sony, Canon, and Nikon. Kodak's products were seen as mediocre and overpriced, unable to compete with the more established and innovative players. Years of neglect had cost them their technological edge. They were a chemical company trying to compete in a world of software and silicon. The vast profits from their film division, which could have funded a complete reinvention of the company, had been squandered on protecting a dying business model. The final years were a painful series of massive layoffs, plant closures, and dwindling market value. The company that had once employed over 145,000 people and had been a symbol of American industrial might was now just a shadow of its former self. In January 2012, the unthinkable happened. Eastman Kodak, the 130-year-old giant of photography, filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. The company that invented the digital camera was ultimately killed by it. Kodak's story is a powerful cautionary tale for any successful business. It teaches us that success can breed complacency and that a fear of disrupting your own business can be far more dangerous than any external competitor. Kodak wasn't defeated by another company, it was defeated by its own resistance to change. They saw the future, but they were afraid of it. In trying to preserve the present, they sacrificed their own future, becoming a textbook example of corporate arrogance and the tragic consequences of failing to adapt. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Ajay Repo for more deep dives into the stories that shape our world. I'll see you in the next one.